Good. So yeah, man. We won't take up too much of your time today, but the one thing we really haven't got into today on the show is voting. And like I told Michael earlier, you, me, and Michael basically have a very similar opinion on voting. But let's go ahead and let everyone know your stance on voting.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess the reason we're all talking about voting, obviously, is because the elections are going on right now, or, well, they're not even really close, but, the TV, the media, right. Politicians, they want us talking about them for more than a year before the elections, and unfortunately, it's difficult to avoid them completely. So part of my strategy and my, I guess, goal during this time, besides trying to throw open my mouth as little as possible, from, just as a reaction to all this stuff, is to use this energy to push people to question the reasons, the motivations they have for voting. I see it as, I guess, just part of my overall strategy. I am a non-voter. I consider myself a principled non-voter, I guess you could say. And to me, I consider non-voting to be more of a strategic effort than anything to do with, apathy or giving up or anything like that. I think that's one of the problems we have is so many people have been taught by the state to believe that if you're not voting in the presidential elections, or you're not really participating, and you should just get out of the country, or you should somehow
right.
lose some of the benefits of being a quote unquote citizen or whatever, and all these really silly status, just simple-minded arguments really is all they are. So I try to combat that and to let people know that no, not all of us are just people who don't care. Actually, I'm okay with the people who don't care and who are just, at least they're ignorant of the system. I mean, I would be happier if they cared about something, but at least they're not
right.
out there supporting the system. They're not the people that are the hardcores that we're seeing, these like hardcore Bernie Sanders supporters and
exactly
Trump supporters and all of them, who are getting all just rallied up and
all emo, emotional.
Well, I mean, I think that for those of us who've been paying attention for a few years, and especially those who maybe supported the presidential run of Ron Paul, have kind of been through this already, and
exactly.
I feel like anybody who's been paying attention for a period of time, for more than a few elections, you kind of get to the point where you're like, wait, I have to watch people do this for the rest of my life? Like, they don't get it? And it's sad, really. I just published a little essay and audio video version on theconsciousresistance.com just called "Here's Why I Don't Vote." And like I said, the reason I chose to do that, it's been like, just I don't pay attention to the elections. I don't pay attention to these politicians. I write about some of the things the government does, but I look for solutions, and I try to empower myself through my community and other people in that same way. But sometimes that voice and this like parade of people, and you see friends and family people, and especially people who for the last 4 years I thought, okay, these people get it, they understand that government's the problem or that both these parties are corrupt, but now they're like, oh no, wait no, he's going to get it, Trump's going to get it this time, or Sanders is going to do it this time, or whatever, and not even getting into any sort of philosophical disagreements with any of these candidates. It's just the idea itself that system has an answer. It's very disheartening, and it's exhausting. Like, oh, come on, guys! Like, I have so many friends who we can agree on all these different topics and have great discussions, and they can see the things that I'm seeing and the reasons that I lay out in this essay for why I think that voting is a waste of time, and they'll be in agreement, but they're like, but still, I've got to try one more time, or I'm doing this. They have their various reasons or justifications for continuing to support the system. And I think it's just that deeply embedded idea that we've been just taught that, that's how you make change, is within that system, right? And if you're outside of the system, then your voice isn't being heard. I wrote a couple of these little standard lines that you hear or that I've heard. If you don't vote, how will your voice be heard? If you don't vote, you have no right to complain. People died for the right to vote. If you don't vote, you're giving your power away. Non-voting is childish. You just won't play the game because you're not getting your way, and things like that. These are the kind of responses you get. And as I was saying, I think you can make a philosophical, a moral argument against voting, that the idea of voting for a president or just the whole majority democracy voting, is immoral. So you could stand on that ground. You could look and see that the dieballed voting machines are hackable, as are many other electronic voting machines are very hackable, and those votes can be switched, pretty easily if somebody wanted to do that. You can also say that the Electoral College is actually, the one electing it, so the popular vote doesn't matter if you want to take that approach. And then you can also take the argument that you can make a better use of your time, and whenever I tell people this, I'm like, look, it's not that I don't do anything. Instead of voting and using any of that energy and researching candidates and doing whatever, I invest my energy into my community, into my own life, so that I can see an immediate and a localized response and to that action, rather than a voting. And some people will say, well, it doesn't take that long. I wouldn't vote today. It didn't take me that long. And to that I say, well, if voting isn't taking that long and you're not doing any research, then that doesn't make me feel any better that there's a bunch of people just going and voting, not spending much time on it. They're just following along with whatever everybody else is saying. They're jumping on the Bernie train or the Trump train or whatever. And that's how most people feel. I mean, a lot of these people that I've been seeing around are real casual political people, like not even, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and I mean, the electoral politics, but now all of a sudden they think that they're well-versed in politics because they know the name Bernie Sanders, they know the name Trump, or they know a couple of issues, and they're like, oh, they're all hot and, excited about, like, getting, supporting this candidate. But as soon as the election passes, those people will go back to their lives and do whatever they want to do. And when that candidate starts, passing legislation that goes against freedom of speech and our freedoms in general, and supports more war and supports, drones and all these different things, where are those people at? And where are going to be all these celebrities who are coming out again shilling for Bernie now, who did the same thing for Obama? Where's the responsibility for these people for using their voice and their audience to promote something that is just going to be more of the same? And I know many people feel Bernie Sanders is not more of the same, and that he's got this history to back him up. I think that that's true, and out of a lot of the candidates, he definitely talks about a lot of issues that you won't hear the other ones say. But I think when you look deeper into it, not just him as an individual, but just all of them, when you look deeper at them, you can see that they're playing a role, and that, just the fact that you're in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party means that you've already made some sacrifices to be willing to play their game rather than choosing to be a true outsider. So there's nobody in that race that's an outsider. So, I also don't vote because of that, because there's nobody there that represents my values and my goals. And so I shouldn't be shamed or forced into voting because of that. It's not, we should stop buying into the whole lesser of two evils thing. I think most of us have seen through that for a long time and seen that that's not getting us anywhere. But for one reason or another, much of the population continues to, go down this road. And like I said in the beginning, this is part of my strategy, though, because whenever I get to this point, and I've explained all that philosophical moral argument, hacking, nobody that represents me, waste of time, the Electoral College, all these different things. And maybe by this point, I've got them listening, and you're like, okay, you're right, there is hacking. You're right. These votes do get switched. There's lots of corruption. I hear you. But what other option do I have? What are you doing, though? Because if you're not voting, then you got to be doing something. And if you're not doing nothing, then why am I even listening to you? And to be honest, if we can't give people an idea, it doesn't mean we have to have all the answers. But if we can't give them something solid strategically, something for them to do, then, yeah, they really will be less likely to listen to you, because people want to feel secure. Our minds want to feel secure. And even if we know that voting is bullshit, people feel like they're doing something that makes them feel calmer, less stressed out, like they've contributed, and maybe the world will be better, because it's stressful to do nothing, right? And so they feel like the world's going to shit, and if they don't do anything, then, they're a horrible person. So by voting, it gives them the feeling, the security that they've done something. So
what I get warm fuzzy.
Yeah, exactly. You get this warm, fuzzy reaction out of voting, and that's not really all you're going to get, besides more of the same. But, the non-voting is part of the strategy of anti-political, apolitical propaganda, spreading those ideas around, getting more people to question the nature of government and the state itself. And in the article that's on theconsciousresistance.com, the Here's Why I Don't Vote, I outline how that's just part one of a bigger strategy, spreading this message, this propaganda, getting people thinking about this. And, in addition to doing that, localizing, focusing on creating new forms of economic exchange that are outside of the state, using ideas like agorism and counter economics, and just building community solutions. So as you're spreading this propaganda, you're building the next thing that's outside of the shell, not working from within the current paradigm, but building new stages. Experimenting with urban gardening, urban farms, land reclamation, doing homesteading projects, building these different types of communities, putting these principles in action. This is my plan. So I have a strategic plan and a goal that I'm working on over the next few years. So to me, not voting is not simply just, running away, or, like they say, just being childish, or just, I don't know, whatever these silly arguments. Or people say, well, non-voting is a vote anyways. Yeah, it is a vote. It's a vote that I don't support that system, and that I'm not even going to give them a piece of paper or a push of a button, or a minute of my time. That instead I'm going to invest my resources, my energy, my finances into something that I believe and do support. And if you don't see that, and if you don't see that in the presidency, there's no reason to support it and to hope that somebody's going to turn into something that you want them to be, because they won't, So instead, support yourself, support your own community, and invest that energy there.
You're completely right, too. So many people think that voting is powerful. It's incredible. And then when you tell them, okay, I'll vote, and guess who I'm going to vote for? Ron Paul. They'll be like, well, that's a waste of vote. And, and I'm like, didn't you just tell me my vote counts? But now you're telling me I'm wasting my vote voting Ron Paul.
Your vote counts if you vote for, one of the two parties. Yeah, don't screw it up by voting for a third party candidate or somebody who's not going to get elected. That's how they want you to think. Is just that these approaches are just designed to keep us within the mainstream system. There's a really, really amazing radical American Indian activist, John Trudell, who just recently passed away, and he gave some great, powerful speeches talking about we have to stop dealing with the oppressor on their own terms, and that includes dealing with them on the terms of voting. So they're the ones in control. They're the ones that allow all the corruption and destruction of the earth. Why do we think that they, some system that they put forth is going to give us anything other than what they want?
But, you're right. We need to remove ourselves from the system. And it's hard to remove ourselves from the federal system. Paying taxes, that's a tough one to dodge.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And this is I know I've talked to you guys about this before, that I wrote a book last year called The Conscious Resistance, and I have another book coming out in about 2 months. And then next year, the third book in the series will be out, and together they're basically going to be just this Conscious Resistance trilogy, which will examine not only, spiritual kind of deeper concepts of freedom, look at anarchist philosophy and how to find freedom in the physical realm, but then the second one's going to be more like a guidebook. It's called Finding Freedom in an Age of Confusion. It's going to look at what we consider the heart of our philosophy, looking at how to deal with life as an activist, waking up and seeing all these crazy things in the world and realizing that most of the world is exactly the opposite of what you thought, and how to just deal with that. So that's going to be more heart-based, and definitely I want people to check that one out. But looking forward, what I'm really excited about is the third book, which is going to be more of just like a hands-on manual. We don't have a name for it yet, but we're calling it right now How to Exit the Matrix, because that's kind of the general idea, is everything that I was just discussing, that strategy that I laid out of urban land reclamation, doing abandoned lot reclamation, gardening, all these different communities, these ideas of freedom cells and agorism. We're putting these in action over this next year, 2 or 3 years here in Houston, and we're documenting the process. And I'm just basically everything that we learn while building this and trying to seek alternative sources of income and tax resistance and these different methods, we will document, and it'll end up making it into the book. So I hope to be able in the next year to 2 years really provide some answers to those questions, because I have my strategies and stuff like that, but I want to do some more experimentation and see what works, and we can take friends of mine and other people who are just committed from being completely invested and dependent on the status system to getting to a point where they're free from that system, or at least partially free, and how you do that. So yeah, definitely lots to look out for that, and I really do hope to have those answers soon, because like I said, this non-voting thing, it isn't just like something to, at least for me, everybody's got a different stance, but for me, it's not just something that pull out of my hat every 4 years to annoy the voters. It's like, this is, I think, just as important about being consistent with your philosophy. And if your philosophy is that you don't want to support the corporations and governmental entities that are enslaving us and abusing us in these different ways, then we should not be playing their game.
No, absolutely, man. And I agree with you. And that's why we appreciate what you're doing. And I actually can't wait to read the new book. And yeah, all right. Well, we don't have a lot of time. Not trying to cut anyone off, but we got like 5 minutes left of the show. So yeah, I definitely we want to get your take on the voting. We want you to plug your book. Anything else, Derrick, that you would like to plug before we wrap up here?
No, man, I just appreciate you guys having me on and giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts and ideas. If anybody's interested in seeing more of my work, you can go to theconsciousresistance.com and you can find my first book there is free to download under the book tab, and the next book comes out in April. So stay tuned to the website and you'll find out more about it.